Shruti Haasan, it always makes my heart very happy to see you. How are you doing?
As does it mine. Nice to see you. I'm good. How are you?
Well, so far so good. You think that after about few months of lockdown, you'll get used to it. You do, but now, even though I'm a recluse, sometimes you know how it is. You don't cook till you're forced to cook, and then you wish for somebody to cook for you.
Well, the last 3 days actually have been for me packet noodles and frozen peas because I just can't be bothered to
Yeah.
keep making it. Like I'm like starting to get less excited about cooking now. Yeah.
You always come across as somebody who's very comfortable being one amongst the boys, just hanging out, and sometimes they forgetting that you're a lady and things like that.
Yeah.
Was that pretty much the way it was with Vijay, Amit, Vidyut?
I would say, I mean, in a sense. But the in Yaara the thing was like Tigmanshu sir was kind of like the dad slash principal slash headmaster, everything. And he was really, I mean, it didn't feel so much like bros hanging out as much as we were all like on this really exciting camping trip where we all had to perform really well. There was after a long time, because this was 4 years ago that we shot the movie, but then I was already like working for about a while. So to experience that kind of feeling again and also to like surrender to a director, it was really nice. So it wasn't so much of like the bro vibe, but yeah, I guess it kind of was. Yeah.
But Sukanya and Yara, talk to me about her. Also, she ages in the role from the little
Yes.
bit I can see in the trailer. In your diverse career, how many times have you had to do that? How do you approach playing someone older or even someone middle age?
So basically, Sukanya starts like in the 70s, late 70s. So for me, like, regressing and referencing costume, vibe. And like I've always said, I found that the women then were more liberated than we are now in terms of opinions and expressing it. You read some old interviews, even in the early 80s and stuff, and you're like, wow, they really spoke their mind. Not all of them, but the ones who did were like way, way more progressive and more courageous in a sense. So I wanted to capture that spirit because she's very much that character in the beginning of the film. She's got dreams. She's here to change the world. She has an ideology, a political ideology, very intellectual. And really, it's Vidyut's character, Fagun, that's the real life brass tacks of living that life. So that was very interesting. To age, like you said, is I've never played it before or after in my career. So that was the first time. And I rarely call dad for advice because most of it goes over my head. And this time I did because I was like, I'm really, really confused as to where to start, as well as the fact that I do a lot of makeup myself. I enjoy makeup very much. So like even the scar in D-Day, I was applying it every day. I love growing up watching bullet wounds and scars and so that like I love prosthetics as well. So I called him first, how do I age my face realistically? The thing is, Hrishikesh, that my parents do not look their age. They look really young, both of
Yeah.
them. So he was like, I would genetically follow that. I wouldn't become all old and and so I kind of followed their face for the makeup model. But when it came to how do you actually perform as older, he gave me a great piece of advice in terms of physicality, which is look at the areas of your body that you have issues with right now and like amplify that, as well as the areas in your personality that you aspire to be like your vision for this character from the point of view of Sukanya. What were her experiences and what do you assess would be the ramifications of that 20 years later? So it was like solving a puzzle that hasn't even been made yet. So it was really amazing.
Wow. That's amazing. Into the thought process of the great Kamal sir. Listen, there's a very important point you made, and I want to just bring that up again, saying about how, sometimes we meet our parties, which is our grandmothers, and they're more progressive
Yeah,
than, some of our parents can be. So it's
yeah.
so important that you say that, there were these progressive women who were, living through Woodstock in the 60s or through the
Oh my
emergency
God,
in
yeah.
the 70s, who are just so much cooler. And we tend to negate that. So I'm really glad that you're saying that, even when you age, you've got to take cognizance of that. That's a thinking actor. So, Tishu Tugmanshu Dhulia, he's supposed to be amongst the directors who brought the new wave of Hindi cinema.
Yes.
Did you watch Pan Singh Tomar? Did you watch
Of
Sahib
course.
Ghulam
I've been a
Hasan?
big fan of his work always. Yeah. Um, he is, you know him, he's a comprehensive
Yeah.
artist. He's a great writer, performer himself, actor, director, of course, as we all know. But more than that, he's steeped in the arts. He has a love for anything artistic, music, art as in painting, as in the history of art or how something developed, not just encompassing his world and his understanding, world cinema, world music. So it was really lovely to work with a man like that.
Yeah, and also he understands the North milieu very well, which
Yes,
is UP, MP, Uttarakhand.
which I don't
Um,
understand at all.
exactly. So, what do you do when you're I mean, you've worked in all kinds of cinema. Look at your
Yeah.
filmography. Much as you're modest about it and you don't bring it up, but the fact that you've worked in these different genres and languages, do you insist on a dialect coach? How did it work in Yaara, for example?
So, for example, in before D-Day, I did take Urdu lessons because I was playing a sex worker from Pakistan, and I wanted to remove. First of all, I have to say, disclaimer right off the bat, my accent in general is one of the weirdest accents in every language. So I think that happens when you're a mixed bag. So my English is a mix of like where I've been traveling, plus if I spend too much time in Chennai, it becomes more Tamilian. Then, people are like, oh, you properly have a South Indian accent. I'm like, really? So I'm very conscious of my Hindi accent in particular. So in D-Day, I had an Urdu dialect coach, and then I had Niranjan Iyengar, who's my friend, and it helped that he's also Tamilian and who's like erased that
Yeah.
accent from all of his Hindi and his English and his Marathi. So that was helpful. In this film, it was really just a shoe sir. And a lot of what we see in terms of dialect was in the dubbing.
Vijay Verma was saying yesterday when I was talking to him, he's saying remarkable things about you. In fact, I asked him, I said, who's a woman you find beautiful? In Hollywood, he said somebody about, not Margot Robbie, but the other girl in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But he said, Shruti is beautiful. She's intelligent, this, that. And then he says, she's got a Tamil sense of humor. So I was like,
What does
what
it
is a
mean?
Tamil sense of humor? And you're a Hyderabadi. You're the last person who should be saying that. So,
What does it mean?
yeah, what does it mean? He said she's
Does it
got a
mean
Tamil
what?
sense
Is
of
it
humor.
like the English sense of humor? Like we should take it as a compliment, right?
I took it as a
Not
compliment. I
about the
said, what do
rest,
you
the
say?
Tamil sense of humor.
Also, a bit of history. I mean, Tishu's worked with Maniratnam sir in Madras, and he spent some time in Madras, I think during Uire and Dilse and things
Yeah.
like that. Did you ever discuss that with him? I mean, the fact that he's worked with Mani sir and things like
I
that?
mean, I think he mentioned it but it was more in passing. I think we were just more really into the fact of the film we were making, but he did mention it. Again, and I'd love to say this because I think you'd understand. I think it's so important that India, we see on the world map, we're a strong country. And, as much as we say unity and diversity, there is a great rift between North and South that I feel a lot sometimes. I feel like it just comes back to oh, you love idli, dosa, sambar. And I'm like, that's not even how you say it. But, I loved Tishu Sir's openness to understanding other cultures. He has that real, genuine want to understand cultures, not just his own, not just his milieu, like you said. So I love talking to him because he would genuinely ask really pertinent questions about my background. Yeah.
So I'm just curious to know, I mean, how come you've never worked with Mani sir, considering you're even related? Were there discussions, something that didn't work out, or it just didn't happen? I
Yeah.
mean, one of those
There
things.
was discussions. Yeah, but maybe in the future, I love his work. And I don't think it's okay to assume that just because we're family, we would work together. But it would be an honor for me to work with him. Absolutely. Like it is for any other actor.
Listen, I want to ask you, what is it about these cities and its people that you love? I mean, you've lived in Chennai, you have
Yes.
houses in Mumbai and London. What do you love
Yes.
most about Chennai? What do you love most about Mumbai and then London?
So let's start with Chennai because that's where I was born. It's my home. I love so many things about it, apart from the food, first and foremost, which is like my go-to in life, the Chennai food. But I like my connection to history and family and the kind of mix of modernity and orthodox that I find nice. I love Bombay because it's cosmopolitan, it's metropolitan, but it's also like there is a sense of thriving and moving and bustling, which I like. I particularly love London because I think it kind of is like a foreign version of Chennai. Like it's steeped in history, so much history in London, as well as kind of like Bombay in the mix of that city life. And now I'm currently residing in Hyderabad, pandemic it out in Hyderabad. And I've always loved Hyderabad. It's been a very special place to me, I think karmically even. And I had my first taste of what it feels like to have success and an audience loving you in the city. And it's a beautiful city. So yeah, so I love all of these cities.
Is there a place in the US that you like or frequent, like New York or LA? I know you went to study music there. You want to
Yeah,
talk about the US?
I've lived in LA. I love my friends there, but I don't really love it all the time because I find it like too chill almost, like, or something. I prefer New York. Yeah.
There's a lot of curiosity, Shruti, about Vidyut Jamwal, considering he's this massive action star. Even Hollywood is really interested in him. Your thoughts on him, that now that you've done this film with him?
Yeah, I think he's like really, I think his forte is physical work, like action, martial arts, and he dedicates himself. It's like seeing a musician, like when you see a classical musician and the amount of hours they practice. Like I talked to my cello player and she's like, I used to practice 16 hours a day now. Even as a vocalist, because I guess it's a voice, it's like, okay, I can push it to a certain extent, but I think Vidyut in that sense has really pushed that physical training boundary, and it shows in body language and especially in his action sequences. So yeah, his dedication to the craft of martial arts is extremely commendable.
And amongst the boys, who do you get along the best with? Was it Amit? Was it Vijay? Was it Vidyut? Who would it
Big
be?
Manchester.
Yeah, one amongst the boys.
Yeah, definitely Shiza is my favorite boy.
I see you're working on some new music. You've been jamming with a
Yeah.
guitar player. You want to just sing us a couple of lines?
I actually have some interesting stuff coming out soon, but which song would you like to hear?
The one that you were jamming with that Parik boy. You're
Oh,
working
with
on
the
it still.
Parik boy, Karan. Yes, very talented, wonderful friend and musician. We're working on something else together. Oh, I know what you're talking about.
It's got a lovely
I
keyboard
forgot
piece,
my
and then he comes
lyrics.
in.
Look at me.
Lovely keyboard piece, and then he comes
Yeah,
in.
yeah, yeah.
You know.
I've forgotten the lyrics. Can you believe it? That was just so I literally free wrote it and put it on Instagram. And then Karan was like, can you send me that video? And he played over it. So can you pick another song?
Anything else? Okay, go with Skin.
Skin? Okay. So Skin is basically about immortality of artists and leaving that behind for people. So that's a bit of a brief. Yeah. You can wear my skin. I can be your voice. You can keep me here even when I'm gone.
Lovely. Listen, I saw this really interesting chat that the BBC had with your dad. I know you guys talk about dad-daughter things, but are you getting a sense from him on the COVID situation in Tamil Nadu? Because he's really hands-on.
Yes. So he does tell me about it and a lot of the work that his party is doing in terms of awareness and being on the ground. I think the overarching thing in the world, not only state to state, is it stopped being about government versus what WHO versus what did they tell us and when did they tell us. Because I don't think anybody is able to get, even doctors, if you look at their studies, they're not able to really tell what's going on. So I think the overarching sense that even Dad is coming to is about personal responsibility adding up into collective good in terms of precaution and safety. Yeah.
I find that you're cooking up a storm. You're experimenting with stuff like tea leaves on pears. When did you first start cooking? Was it in Chennai when you were a kid, or when you were in America when you were living alone?
When I was in America living alone, my roommate Jay Raukavi, the drummer, would actually cook. And he would make stir fry and he would never share it. And his mom had brought over a suitcase of, do you know those ready-made packets you can heat in water? Like that was my bit of Indian food. And I remember paying $20 for idlis from Surya's in LA. And I was like, do you know what? I really need to start learning how to cook. So it was only when I came back from America, having starved as a student and eating hot pockets and ramen, that I was like, I need to start cooking. So I started cooking properly when I was about 20, 21, 22. And then I got so into it. And I remember with my first band, we would practice and then they'd be like, let's go over to Shruti's flat because like she'll cook for us. And then that was really my practice thing. Because they'd be like, can you make burritos today? Can we have a frittata? And I'd be like, okay, I'll learn to cook it, because they weren't getting paid anything. And I was like, I'm going to like cook for them and bribe them into playing with me.
Whenever I need a fun moment on my radio show, I call Jay and get him to do his accents, the Bandra auntie and
Isn't
things
he
like that.
amazing?
Oh God, he's so
Have you heard
good.
his Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yeah. Alternate
So
career
good.
there. Alternate
He's
career
so
there.
good. Yeah.
What is also impressive is now that you don't have a posse of camera people, makeup artists, clothes people, you're actually steam pressing, getting made up, shooting yourself.
Yes.
What's that been like? I mean, eventually, Shruti, you are going to have your staff back also because you provide them a source of employment. So that's really important.
Absolutely.
But has it given you some solid confidence saying, I can do this? Have you thought of direction? Because slowly you're letting your hand loose at all these departments.
Well, here's the thing. I've always loved makeup and creation of a look. It's something I learned even at MI when I learned makeup at MI as a part of presenting this character on stage, right? And when I came to the movie business, other people were doing makeup on my face that I didn't really like. It felt too much, or it felt like, I don't know, it just wasn't my vibe. So I started learning. My dad was like, start learning to do it yourself. So I've been a bit of a control freak in that department always. So a lot of the movies, yes, I have a makeup artist, unless it's a glamorous shoot where the makeup artist is so much more experienced when I'm like, take the face. But other than that, I like having a sense of style and putting together. What's happened in the pandemic is it's expanded into shooting and, creating. What social media has taught all of us is that all of these narratives, your voice, it started with Twitter and being able to say, this is what I want to say without having a filter or without waiting for you to ask me the question, for example. I think now it's expanded for me in lockdown of, oh, this is also just my vibe. I can put this across. Yeah.
I know about the music and the acting and the cooking, but I had no idea you doodle. I saw some random video of you doodling.
Oh my
Were you
God.
good at art in school? How did that come about?
No. Oh my God. There's actually like proper artists in the world who'd be like Hrishikesh. Seriously.
No, but it's quite cool. I mean, I never knew that there was that facet of you. Yeah. How often does
I
that
like
happen? How often does that happen?
when I'm stressed or when I'm bored. Yeah, not as often anymore. But when I was young, I used to draw comic strips of stuff in my life. So yeah, just for fun, but nothing to take home and like boast about really.
Why is your production house called Isidro Media? That's quite interesting. Tell us about it.
Oh my God, I had a dream about a saint, and he was a farmer. And I was like, are you some sort of saint? And he was speaking in a language I didn't understand. And I was just thinking I want to name my production company. And I didn't. And I had a dream, and it was a guy, I couldn't understand what he was saying. And someone saying he's some sort of saint, and he's a farmer, and he's some sort of saint. And I was like, huh. And I woke up, and I dream very vividly. And I like to share my dreams with my friends or my unwitting partner at the time, And then I'll be like, you know what, I had this dream. And I woke up and I remember telling a friend I had this dream, and they said, well, you should Google if there's like a saint of the farmers. And I did, and he was Saint Isidro. And it was so similar to the man I'd seen in my dream. And I was like, surely this is a sign. So I named it Isidro. That's the
So
story.
cool. That is such a cool
I just
nugget.
thought it's lovely. It's like cultivation of ideas, planting the seed, creativity. And then I added all these intellectual layers. But basically, I just had this dream.
Have you opened books on interpreting dreams? I mean, have
Yes,
you done
I'm
that? Yeah.
obsessed. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And the music page on YouTube, that's really fab. I'd like you to talk about it. That's awesome.
Thank you. What happens is I put a bit of stuff on Instagram and people kept saying, where can I see all of this? Where can I see all of this? Because obviously they didn't want to scroll. So a lot of people have been like, you obviously should have your own YouTube page. So I just recently started it where people can go and see all of my live performances. well, not all of them are up yet, but they will keep adding to it. And it's just the music space for Shruti, because otherwise it's everything else. So this is just that little sacred space with music.
Yeah, everybody who's watching or listening, there are these intimate performances at venues in London. There's also behind the scenes footage. So you should just go check out the Shruti Haasan YouTube page. It's really, really important. So what's the first thing you're going to do when you emerge from full lockdown?
Work, I think.
Get on a set or get into a gig?
Yeah,
Work
no,
with
so
you has many
everyone
connotations.
asked me this question, and I would say, in my case, a set first, simply because of the number of people it employs, and like how conducive it is. Also, we have like films midway that like we're about to release in May and stuff, so I would like to get back to a movie set first, actually. Yeah.
Last question, how's Clara the cat and your mom and your sister?
She's actually in Bombay with my domestic help, because cats hate traveling.
Of
I
course.
drove by road 14 and a half hours to get here, and I just couldn't do that to Clara. Besides, she's also like really loves my maid, because when I'm traveling, that's her mama. So she's very happy there.
So what do you do when you stop off, on these long trips, 14 and a half hours? Do you get off at dhabas and eat, or do you just pack your food and take you?
In the middle of the pandemic, I've driven 14 and a half hours. I was scared to stop to eat with, because I was like, let's just keep going. It was really grueling. But what I had done is I packed safe sandwiches and dry fruits and biscuits for myself and the driver, and that's all we did. You can't stop and eat. You can't be that irresponsible, really.
The 70s and 90s that you're talking about in Yaara, the transition, which you talked about in terms of your character. You already talked about that transition. But the film itself, I'm sure, shows a lot of cultural transformation. Is that true?
Of course. I think that, when I speak to people from my parents' generation, I really love how they've seen everything from TV to black and white, radio to TV, black and white to radio to TV, black and white to color, then cassettes, and then CDs, tapes, LDs, iPod, like iPhone, Netflix. Like they've seen the whole arc. Do you know what I mean? And when you see this movie, you also see that ease of technology creeping into the lives. It's really just technology. Funny thing, progressive technology, but like really different in terms of, like I said, they were much more liberal and progressive then.
Yeah, your sister and mom doing well?
Yes.
Yeah, I love that a little bit of a TikTok video that you did.
Yeah.
It was almost like a bye-bye TikTok.
Yeah.
Akshara and you together. They went out with a bag.
Yes.
Listen, you're lovely. God
Lovely
bless you.
to talk.
Pakala, take care and see you soon. Yeah?
Yes.
Bye. See you.
Bye.